So earlier this year, SEGA announced something that had the internet let out a big collective what? And that is the Game Gear Micro. Okay, SEGA. Now, when they first showed it, that was everyone's reaction. We were pretty confused because we were hoping that the next mini plug-and-play system would be the Dreamcast. That was what we all wanted. We all want the Dreamcast. The Saturn would be kind of cool too, but like a lot of us are saying, SEGA, let's do the Dreamcast. You'll make a bunch of money and all of this. This, however, seems to be more of kind of a novelty. I mean, they released 4 of them. This is the blue one, and I said I would at least pick up one of them so we could take a look here, but they also have a blue, black, red, and then they also have yellow. So they have several different ones you can collect, and at one point they were selling the bundle of all 4 of them, which I guess would be 16 games, there's 4 per. That would be for $200. I just managed to get one. Because I don't think I need 4 of these. So I figure we'll have some fun here. We'll unbox this, check it out, and then go ahead and take it apart as well to see what's going on inside. So if you guys enjoy the video for the Game Gear Micro, make sure you hit the like button down below and subscribe if you're new here. So first of all, the obvious thing is this handheld is tiny. It is really, really small. A quick size comparison of the box that the handheld comes in. That is a Game Gear game. That is the whole box, the whole retail packaging here. Yes, it is hilariously small, I guess is what we'll say. But I do like the way that the box looks. I just like Sonic, Tails, of course. It has this nice color scheme to it on the back. It has 4 different games. Let's see, it has Sonic and Tails, Gunstar Heroes, Sylvan Tale, and Baku Baku Animal, which I believe is a puzzle game that was released in Japan. All the way around, yes, this was only released in Japan. So we can see all of the writing, obviously not in English or anything, which means that if you get one of these that has the majority of RPGs on it, which I think there are at least one of them that's just all RPGs, it's gonna be very hard to play it unless you understand, obviously, the writing here. Unfortunately, it looks like in shipment, they kind of roughed up the box here. So that's too bad, because this is probably gonna be more or less a collector's item for SEGA fans. Looks like inside we do get some sort of paperwork. It is in Japanese, so unfortunately, I don't really understand too much of what's going on here. They do have pictures, of course, though, but it's a very simple device. And in fact, when we pop it out of here, you can see how small it really is. I mean, this thing is like microscopic. Quick size comparison to the original Game Gear. There's the original, and there is the mini. I mean, seriously, if you look at the original and you put the mini right down, it is like the same width almost of the screen itself and then shorter. So yeah, this thing, I would say that the screen here is about the size of a postage stamp. That's what I would go with. But let's take a look around here. We of course have the screen, D-pad, we have buttons 1 and 2. There is the start button, and on top we have our switch, micro USB, a headphone jack. It is surprising they did get a headphone jack on there. There we go. And then we have a volume rocker, nothing on the bottom. And then on the back, we do have a battery door because this does take 2 AAA batteries. Okay, so we got the AAA batteries in there. The D-pad feels absolutely terrible. The D-pad does not feel good. I can't tell if this is actually pushing left right now. There's not a lot of movement to it. I mean, I guess there's only so much you can do with this D-pad with how small they were trying to make it. And these buttons are very, very close together, so you might be hitting both of them at the same time. Keep that in mind. Start button is at least off to its side up here, so that's harder to hit, but yes, 1 and 2 are, it's almost one button basically. We do have our speaker, it looks like here. Let's go ahead and turn this on, see how loud this gets. I have that all the way up. Hey, the screen's pretty bright. It's not too hard to read either. It's kind of has that Game Boy Micro feel to it, like where the screen itself is high definition enough to where you can read it. You know what? That's pretty loud. Let me turn it down a little bit. That is pretty loud. Like the actual, it doesn't sound particularly great, but I mean the Game Gear itself wasn't exactly high quality audio when it was out. Let's see. We have 4 different games here to go through. We have a battery icon at the top there, top right. And then we have, it looks like settings. So let's see if I go, oh, that's cool. You can kind of turn it into like a little, like you can look at the spines of the different games by pressing, that's 1. So I guess 2 is accept. And it looks like we have another menu here that we can go through for options. Let's go ahead and get into a game. Let's get into Sonic. You know what? I will say this at least, the screen works. It's not like crazy low quality or anything. Like I can read everything that's on the screen, The question will be any kind of ghosting. This looks like, color-wise, the colors pop off the screen pretty well. It's still very small, so like, for example, it's hard to make out Sonic's face exactly. Movement looks fine. Like, there's no obvious ghosting or anything that's egregious. You know what, this kind of makes me sad that they didn't just go for more of a full-sized Game Gear Mini and just put all of the games on it and charge like $80 for it, because that actually would have been really cool with what I'm seeing here for this device. I mean, they charge this, I think, with shipping from, it was from Amazon Japan, I think it was $60. So in my mind, I'm like, well, if they had just taken the Game Gear Mini and made that could have been a lot better. Yeah, you know what, the D-pad, I mean, it works, but it's just not very comfortable, I guess. It's again, kind of hard to exactly tell. Like, there's no real good feedback from the D-pad when you press down. It feels mushy, I guess you would say. Like, you can see the whole thing moving, right, when I press it. The other game I really wanted to check out was Gunstar Heroes, because that is an awesome game. Well, it's definitely Gunstar Heroes. This is one where you need like good, just overall, the ability to react pretty quickly with the D-pad. And of course, you are shooting in all directions here. So the D-pad does come into play quite a bit. And once again, it is certainly a serious weakness. I'm actually getting all right with these buttons now that I'm looking at it. I thought I would press them more frequently together by accident, but I think just the way that they're raised up a little bit and they have kind of like divots on them, they're a little easier to avoid pressing them both at the same time. It's mostly just this D-pad for me that really hurts the experience. Especially something with Gunstar Heroes, like where you're trying to avoid and then also shoot in different directions, specifically the diagonals. Like, the diagonals is the part that's really throwing me off right now, trying to hit that exactly right while moving. It's not great for that. But I will say the game seems to play pretty well. The screen itself is not a massive weakness. It actually looks fairly good for how small it is. And overall, the emulation seems okay. Seems serviceable, I'd say. No massive slowdowns from what I can tell, and the ghosting on the screen isn't bad. So, you know what? Not too bad in terms of playability for the games themselves. So now we'll go ahead and take this apart. It looks like there's just 4 Phillips head screws, I think, on the back, and that might honestly be it. There might be a screw holding the board in, but based on the size of this system, it really wasn't gonna have a lot of screws anyway, because again, you can see the size even of the screw compared to the system. And this should be able to pop off here. Looks like we just have our board and the screen itself. Let's see how this will lift up. There we go. That start button was trying to get away from me there, but it looks like the screen just presses on, so that lifts off there. We do have the speaker soldered in, but I don't really have to do much else with it. Take a look at it. Here's our D-pad, and yeah, you can see why it doesn't feel great. I mean, the divot here is it barely exists. It's kind of rounded right there. So yeah, you can press it down very, very easily right in the middle, and there's just not going to be a lot of feedback in terms of when you actually press a direction. But like, I don't really know what else you do when you try to make something this small for a D-pad, because they have all 4 contacts here that they're trying to press against, and they have to have kind of this height requirement in mind as well for the D-pad. So it's difficult. And again, I would have liked to see them do like a full-sized Game Gear. I think that could have been really, really cool with what they have here. It does look like the screen itself is sealed down in some way. It's small enough to where it really doesn't matter to pull off. So it looks like they have at least sealed that against the front, which if you have a smaller screen, you'd probably want to do that because it'd be a little more fragile. So that at least makes sense for them to kind of glue it to the front there for overall stability. As for the chip powering this device, it's the F1C200S. It is a fairly cheap CPU. Like, there's not a lot going on with it. In fact, the chip itself even has DDR1 built into it, according to some of the data sheets that I found, and it's about 64 megabytes. But for what they're trying to emulate here with Game Gear, you really don't need much. And this probably works well for 2 AAA batteries. They've talked about it getting a decent enough battery life, considering it is using 2 AAA batteries. I think they said like 4 or 5 hours or something like that. But considering it's in such a small enclosure, they're trying to keep heat down, for example, and of course, build of material, the F1C200S isn't gonna do too much more outside of what it's doing here in this system, but considering they're not trying to do anything else that's too crazy, it at least works, which tells me this is probably not a system worth getting too crazy about when it comes to opening up or trying to hack it or do anything with homebrew, just because the chip inside is pretty limited. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for the SEGA Game Gear Mini. Is this something you should pick up? Probably not, unless you are a really big Sega collector and you want all of the pieces of hardware that they put out there, then maybe, but keep in mind, they have 4 of these, and they could have easily just made one and sold it for like 80 bucks. Instead, they made 4 of them and packaged them all together for $200. Sega knew what they were doing with this, but I will give them a pass if they actually make the Dreamcast Mini. If they stop playing all these games with the Game Gear Mini and all of this. No. Dreamcast Mini, and we'll call it even, Sega, okay? Now, you owe me now, right? Because I have this thing. But let me know what you guys think about the Game Gear Mini down below. Maybe you did pick it up, and hey, maybe you like it. Technically, I guess you could attach to your keychain and walk around with it and play it when you have try to play it when you have a minute or two. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think about this one. Make sure you like the video on the way out if you enjoyed it. Dislike it if not, and I'll see you next time.